Leah Martinez had always believed she was meant to be a writer. Ever since she was a little girl, she would sit under the old oak tree in her backyard with a tattered notebook, filling pages with stories of adventure, love, and magic. She dreamt of seeing her books in bookstores, of people falling in love with her characters the way she had fallen in love with books growing up. But dreams, as Leah would come to learn, were fragile things. At 28, she had spent the last 10 years chasing her writing dream, submitting manuscripts to publishers, entering contests, and self-publishing online. Each rejection stung, each failure chipped away at her confidence. Her parents, once supportive, began to gently suggest she look for something more stable. Her friends, though kind, often changed the subject when she spoke about her latest rejection. After her latest book manuscript was rejected by yet another publisher, the 10th in a row, Leah felt something inside her break. Maybe they were right. Maybe she wasn't meant to be a writer. That night, she sat in her tiny apartment, staring at her laptop screen. She had written another novel, poured months of effort into it, but she couldn't bear the thought of another rejection. With a deep sigh, she shut her laptop and whispered, "Maybe it's time to let this go." Leah decided to take a break from writing. She picked up extra shifts at the bookstore where she worked, buried herself in work, and tried not to think about the story still burning inside her. But the absence of writing felt like a missing piece in her life. She found herself jotting down ideas on receipts, scribbling dialogue in the margins of old notebooks. No matter how hard she tried to walk away, the stories refused to leave her. One evening, as she closed up the bookstore, she ran into Mrs. Kensington, one of the regular customers. She was an elderly woman who always bought stacks of books and loved to chat about literature. "You look troubled, dear," Mrs. Kensington said kindly. "Something on your mind?" Leah hesitated, then admitted, "I think I've given up on my dream of being a writer." Mrs. Kensington studied her for a long moment before saying, "Giving up is easy, my dear. But have you truly tried everything?" Leah frowned. "I've done everything I could, sent my manuscript everywhere, rewritten it over and over. Nothing works." The old woman smiled. "Then maybe, just maybe, you haven't tried the right way yet." Leah couldn't stop thinking about Mrs. Kensington's words. Had she really tried everything? She decided to make one final attempt, not just to publish her book, but to do it on her own terms. Instead of submitting to publishers, she researched self-publishing. She read about authors who had found success through independent publishing, through marketing their books themselves. With renewed determination, she spent weeks editing her manuscript, designing a cover, and learning everything she could about self-publishing. She poured her savings into hiring a professional editor and invested in an online course on book marketing. It was terrifying, putting everything on the line for one last attempt. But Leah knew she had to try. When she finally hit the publish button, she held her breath. There was no going back now. Publishing the book was just the first step. Leah quickly realized that self-publishing wasn't as easy as uploading a file and waiting for success. She had to promote it, reach out to book reviewers, run ads, and convince people to give her story a chance. At first, nothing happened. Days passed and sales were slow. She felt the creeping fear of failure whispering in her ear, but she refused to give up this time. She kept pushing, kept learning. One night, a well-known book blogger stumbled upon her book and wrote a glowing review. Suddenly, people were talking about it. Sales picked up and readers started leaving heartfelt messages about how much her story had meant to them. Leah's hands trembled as she read an email from a young woman who had been inspired to pursue her own dream after reading her book. Tears filled Leah's eyes. This was why she wrote. Months later, Leah received an email from a major publisher. They had seen the success of her book and wanted to discuss a traditional publishing deal. She stared at the email, hardly believing it. The dream she had fought for, the dream she had almost abandoned, was finally coming true. Not because she had waited for someone to say yes, but because she had found a way to make it happen herself. Leah signed the deal, but more importantly, she learned that success wasn't about never failing. It was about never stopping. And as she sat at her desk, working on her next book, she knew she would never give up on her dreams again.